We're living in an overstimulated world where we're constantly told that we need to be more productive, we need to be more busy, and we need to do more with our time. But what if we were wrong about this? What if there were benefits of doing absolutely nothing at all? That's what I'll discuss in this video. I'm going to critique the idea that we need to be so productive all the time. I'll then go through some of the research-backed benefits of doing nothing at all. The problem is that we live in a society where our human value is measured by our output. It begins very early in the schooling system where we get good grades or we get bad grades. It continues on to university where the same system perpetuates itself, and then into the workforce where we've got our KPIs. We're constantly trying to measure the productivity of employees. The purpose is noble. Corporations want to be profitable. They want to survive. When the corporation survives and is profitable, it's able to keep on employing more people. But the implication isn't good for us as human beings. We end up internalizing the idea that our own self-worth can only be measured by our productivity. So we end up constantly weighing ourselves up against ourselves and comparing ourselves to other people around us for what we've managed to do. The problem also is that we often measure our own self-worth in terms of the amount of assets that we've accumulated. And then if we feel like we haven't accumulated enough, and unfortunately the way the system works is that we're constantly told that we don't have enough, we feel guilty for not doing more. It becomes self-perpetuating where we run ourselves into the ground, where the whole act of feeling guilty makes us feel worse about ourselves. We become more exhausted, less productive, and less creative as human beings. The thing is, there are a lot of health benefits to embracing our downtime. I'm going to quote from an InSeed article. When you allow yourself time to do nothing, you give your brain a chance to process experiences, consolidate memories, and reinforce learning. Your resting state is a powerful tool for regulating your emotions and maintaining the ability to focus. Rest will also help you make better decisions and be more productive. Downtime benefits your creativity too. Letting your brain rest can trigger more imaginative thoughts and ideas. So if we can embrace doing nothing without feeling so guilty about it, we can start to get a lot of those benefits coming into our lives. We can become much more at peace with ourselves. We can become more focused when that's what we want to do. And importantly, we can allow new ideas to come to the surface, which can end up leading us in different directions in life that may provide us a lot more meaning and satisfaction. So how do you know that you're actually doing nothing? I think a really good way to identify it is that the feeling of boredom starts to come to you. I know in my case, I can tell you that when I feel bored, I get a little frustrated. I automatically reach for something to do, for something to stimulate myself. But actually that feeling of boredom can be really stimulating for us in a very unexpected way. Because when we start to feel bored, the only thing we've got left is ourselves. We are forced to confront what's deep inside ourselves. We're forced to face up to the frustrations that we've got. And by facing up to those frustrations, we can start to work through some of the inner challenges that we all go through in life. And this, of course, is the fertile ground for new ideas to emerge from. I think there's a real myth when people think of coming up with new ideas. They think that generation of new ideas is about a beautiful and pristine field or space to be in, that they need to escape their problems in life to come up with new ideas. But actually, I think that the best ideas come from facing up to our limitations. And that's when we go within, we find those limitations within. That's where we can really come up with new ideas for how we can live the best life that we possibly can. So in a sense, I think that this feeling of boredom can be seen as the beginning of entering a liminal space, a place where fresh ideas are about to emerge, if only we've got the courage to become comfortable with feeling bored. If only we've got the courage with being comfortable with the challenges that we feel deep within. So with this in mind, I want to share with you a couple of ideas for how you can embrace doing nothing if it doesn't come naturally to you. So of course, you can just sit down and do absolutely nothing at all, get really bored and just go through that time. And that's a really good way to go about it. But you can also incorporate it into little bits and pieces of your everyday life where you're continuing going to work, you're continuing being a productive person. One way that I do it is by going for walks or going for runs without any headphones. So I used to always need something in my ear to listen to, whether it was a podcast or sometimes listening to music. Then the walks and the runs that I would go on would become much more stimulating for my brain, and I could go through that period of time being all alone just with myself. So lately, now that I'm starting to embrace doing nothing, now that I recognize the importance of it, I go for my morning runs without anything in my ears. All I've got is myself and the pain that my muscles start to go through. And the key thing is that when I get to that moment where I start to feel really bored, I keep on going for longer, usually an extra 10 minutes, because I recognize the value of doing nothing at all. Another way is to learn how to meditate. And again, if you're like me, you may find meditation really difficult. I've got a bit of a monkey mind, it's always in operation. But then I learned from Alan Watts a very different way of learning how to meditate, and it completely changed everything. So I've got a link just up above to a video I created many years ago that breaks down Alan Watts's trick on how to meditate if you feel like you're someone who can't actually meditate at all. Another idea is to take out time to go for a drive or to go for a bike ride without any destination in mind. Just take different turns randomly, see where you end up, and do it without any music on the speakers. Just be comfortable doing it completely alone. And finally, another way is to just look around and see what's in the room that you're in right now. What are the things that are present that you've never actually noticed before? And just move around, look at what's there in front of you, and let your mind wander as you take the time to just settle into the environment that you're currently in. The key thing about doing nothing is that it shifts the way that we think from being analytical to being passive. It shifts us from trying to control what's going on in our minds and all of the stimulus that's coming in to being much more free with our thinking, to letting the ideas wander, to connecting with what's underneath the surface much more and giving it a lot more space to come to the surface. And I think that in terms of who we are, we fall into the trap of believing that we are the things that we externalize in life, that we are our jobs, that we are the amount of money we've got in our bank account. But really, who we are is so much more than this. There's so much more to us beneath the surface, running around in our subconscious, in our dreams, in our different perspectives. When we can embrace doing absolutely nothing at all, we give a lot more space to parts of ourselves that are absolutely fundamental to who we really are. We end up becoming a more whole and holistic human being. We end up fighting against the system that tries to place us in boxes, that tries to measure our worth by our productivity. I'd go so far as to say that incorporating doing absolutely nothing at all is a revolutionary act in a world that tries to measure our worth and our value by numbers and figures.